You woke up this morning. You brushed your teeth, poured your coffee, maybe checked your phone. Nothing remarkable. Just another ordinary day. But here is what nobody tells you. That ordinary day, the small decisions you make without thinking, the habits so routine you have stopped noticing them, is quietly writing the final chapter of your health story. Right now. Without your permission. Serious. Every year, hundreds of thousands of adults over 50 end up facing heart disease, cognitive decline, and metabolic collapse, not because of one catastrophic choice, but because of 7 invisible patterns that had been compounding in their bodies for decades. And the most dangerous part? Curious. Those patterns have almost nothing to do with what the health industry keeps selling you. Stay with me, because what I am about to show you changes everything. My name is Dr. Daniel Carter, and I have spent decades studying the science of human longevity, specifically why some people reach their 80s and 90s with their minds sharp, their bodies strong, and their independence fully intact, while others begin declining in their 50s and 60s. If you are over 50, this message was made for you. And I do not say this lightly. This information could literally save your life. Here is what most people do not understand about aging. Your body is not a passive system that simply wears out over time. It is an active, responsive machine that is constantly responding to the signals you send it, through your behavior, your sleep, your relationships, your movement, and your stress levels. When those signals are healthy, your body enters a state researchers call biological resilience. Inflammation stays low. Cells repair themselves. Your cardiovascular system stays flexible. Your brain stays sharp. But when those signals are chronically wrong, even in subtle, invisible ways, your body enters what scientists call accelerated biological aging. The American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine has documented this process extensively. Your telomeres shorten faster. Cellular repair slows down. Chronic low-grade inflammation builds silently inside your arteries, your brain tissue, your joints. The consequences stack up. Silent damage to your heart that arrives without warning. Memory loss that was never inevitable. Metabolic collapse that looks like normal aging but is not. A loss of independence that happens years, sometimes decades, too early. Tonight, you will learn which 7 habits are driving that acceleration in your body and exactly how to stop them. Habit number 7. Sitting still for longer than 90 minutes. Most people know they should exercise, but here is what almost no one knows. It is not the absence of exercise that is killing people over 50. It is the prolonged stillness between movements. Here is what happens inside your body when you sit for more than 90 minutes without moving. An enzyme called lipoprotein lipase, your body's primary fat-burning signal, drops by nearly 90%. Your blood sugar regulation system begins to stall. Blood pools in your lower extremities. Circulation to your brain reduces, and a process called endothelial dysfunction begins to set in. The slow, invisible damage to the lining of your blood vessels that is the first step toward cardiovascular disease. A landmark study published in the Annals of Internal Medicine found that people who sat for extended periods, even those who exercised regularly, had significantly higher rates of cardiovascular mortality than those who broke up their sitting with regular movement throughout the day. I had a 63-year-old patient, a retired accountant, proud of her daily 30-minute walk each morning, healthy by every external measure, but she was sitting at her desk for 5 to 6 hours at a stretch every afternoon. When we checked her metabolic markers, her post-meal blood glucose spikes were alarming, her vascular inflammation was elevated, her body was aging faster than her age suggested. The fix is not dramatic. Set a timer for every 45 to 60 minutes. When it sounds, stand up and walk for 2 to 3 minutes, march in place. Do 5 bodyweight squats. That is enough to reactivate lipoprotein lipase and reset your metabolic baseline. Research shows that this simple pattern reduces the harmful effects of prolonged sitting by more than 40%. Here is the detail almost nobody mentions. Most people try to compensate with one long exercise session rather than multiple short breaks. The science is clear. Frequency of movement matters far more than intensity. Your body needs movement signals distributed throughout the day, not stored up and released all at once. Stop right now and think honestly. How many hours did you spend sitting today without a break? Drop your answer in the comments below. Habit number 6. Chronic low-grade sleep deprivation. Not sleeping 4 hours a night, not pulling all-nighters. Something far more common and far more dangerous. Getting 6 hours of sleep instead of 7 or 8, night after night, for years. Most people over 50 assume they have simply adjusted to less sleep. The truth is, something far more alarming. Here is what that nightly hour deficit is doing to your body. During deep sleep, your brain activates a system called the glymphatic network, a biological cleaning crew that flushes out neurotoxic waste, including amyloid beta, the protein directly linked to Alzheimer's disease. When you shorten your sleep, that cleaning process is interrupted night after night. The waste accumulates. Simultaneously, your body releases growth hormone almost exclusively during deep sleep stages. Without adequate sleep, cellular repair drops dramatically. Cortisol, your primary stress hormone, remains elevated the following day, driving inflammation, disrupting blood sugar regulation, and quietly accelerating cardiovascular damage. A major study published in Nature Communications tracked over 7,000 middle-aged adults for nearly 2 decades and found that consistently sleeping 6 hours or less was associated with a 30% higher risk of developing dementia later in life. I think about a 58-year-old executive I worked with. Sharp, driven, proud of functioning on 6 hours. He came to me not for sleep issues, but for what he thought was normal aging. Foggy thinking in the afternoons, creeping weight gain, blood pressure that had crept up over 3 years. When we addressed his sleep as the primary intervention, every single one of those markers improved within 90 days. You do not need sleeping pills. You need a consistent sleep window. Set a fixed wake time, even on weekends, and work backward 7.5 to 8 hours. That single anchor stabilizes your entire circadian rhythm within 2 weeks. Eliminate all screens for 45 minutes before bed. Keep your bedroom at 65 to 67 degrees Fahrenheit. Your body temperature must drop 1 to 2 degrees to initiate deep sleep. This works. The science is solid. How many hours of sleep did you actually get last night? Be honest. Drop a number in the comments. Habit number 5. Eating in a way that creates constant insulin spikes. This one surprises almost everyone because the foods causing the most damage are not the ones labeled as junk food. Fruit juice, white bread, low-fat yogurt with added fruit, instant oatmeal, foods that millions of health-conscious adults over 50 eat every single day, believing they are making good choices. Here is what happens inside your body every time blood sugar spikes dramatically and then crashes. Your pancreas releases a surge of insulin. Over time, your cells begin to resist that insulin signal. This is the slow march toward type 2 diabetes that takes years to become visible. But before you receive that diagnosis, something else is happening. Each spike triggers an inflammatory response throughout your vascular system. Researchers at Harvard Medical School have documented how this repeated cycle of glycemic spikes damages the endothelium, the thin, protective inner lining of every blood vessel in your body. Once damaged, that lining becomes a site for plaque formation, for oxidative stress, for the quiet buildup of cardiovascular disease that takes 20 years to produce a heart attack. A 67-year-old woman came to me with what her previous doctor called borderline prediabetes. She was eating what she described as a clean diet, low fat, plenty of fruit, whole grain cereals. When we tracked her actual glucose curve throughout the day, it looked like a roller coaster. She was experiencing 6 to 8 significant spikes daily without realizing it. Within 4 months of restructuring her meals, her fasting glucose normalized completely. The single most powerful change you can make is to never eat carbohydrates alone. Always pair them with protein, fat, or fiber, all 3 of which slow the absorption of glucose into your bloodstream and flatten the insulin response. Start with breakfast. Replace the fruit juice and cereal with 2 eggs, avocado, and a handful of berries. That one change alone can reduce your daily glucose volatility by more than 35%. Your body has the capacity to recover. You just need to stop sending it the wrong signals. What does your typical breakfast look like? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. Habit number 4. Social withdrawal and chronic loneliness. This is the habit nobody wants to admit to, and it may be the most lethal one on this list. After 50, social circles shrink, friendships thin, some people lose a partner, children move away, and slowly, almost invisibly, isolation sets in, disguised as independence, as introversion, as simply being too busy. Here is what nobody tells you about what that isolation is doing inside your body. Chronic loneliness triggers a biological cascade that is remarkably similar to living under constant physical threat. Your body releases elevated levels of cortisol and norepinephrine around the clock. Your immune system shifts into a pro-inflammatory state, producing higher levels of the markers directly associated with cardiovascular disease and accelerated cognitive decline. A landmark analysis published in PLOS Medicine, one of the largest ever conducted, examined data from over 300,000 adults and found that social isolation carries a mortality risk equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Not occasionally, every day. My father, a man who had been healthy and active his entire life, retired at 67 and gradually withdrew from his social circle. Within 2 years, his blood pressure had climbed significantly. His doctor increased his medication twice. What nobody connected until I looked at the full picture was that his physical deterioration had tracked almost exactly with the contraction of his social world. When he rejoined his old astronomy club and began seeing friends weekly, his markers began to improve without any other change. You do not need a large social life. You need a consistent one. Research shows that the protective benefit of social connection is fully achieved through just 2 to 3 meaningful interactions per week. Schedule them the way you would a medical appointment, a phone call with a friend, a weekly dinner, a community class. Put it on your calendar. Protect it. Starting tonight, your relationships are not a luxury. They are medicine. When was the last time you had a genuinely meaningful conversation with someone outside your household? Drop your city in the comments below. I love seeing where this community reaches. Habit number 3. Unmanaged chronic stress. Not the stress of a difficult day, not the kind that passes, the kind that has been running quietly in the background for years, the financial worry that never fully leaves, the caregiving pressure that never pauses, the low-grade sense of being overwhelmed that has become so familiar it no longer feels like stress. It just feels like life. That is not life. That is a physiological minefield. And by the time you notice the damage, it has been building for years. Here is what chronic stress does inside your body. Your adrenal glands release cortisol, a hormone that is brilliantly useful for short-term emergencies. But when cortisol remains elevated for months and years, it begins acting like a slow poison throughout every system in your body. It raises blood pressure. It breaks down muscle tissue. It disrupts the hippocampus, the brain region most involved in memory formation, and accelerates structural changes associated with dementia. It shortens telomeres, the protective caps on your chromosomes that serve as a direct marker of biological age. Research from the University of California, San Francisco found that women living under high chronic stress had telomeres the biological equivalent of 10 years older than women with low stress levels. A 61-year-old man came to me 6 months after becoming the primary caregiver for his mother with dementia. He was not sleeping. He had no time for himself. On paper, his diet had not changed. His exercise had not changed. But in 8 months, his blood pressure had increased, his fasting glucose had risen into the pre-diabetic range, and he had developed early signs of metabolic syndrome. The cause was not age, it was cortisol. The most evidence-backed stress recovery tool available to you costs nothing and takes 4 minutes. Slow, controlled breathing, specifically extending the exhale longer than the inhale, activates the parasympathetic nervous system and begins reducing cortisol within minutes. Breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 2, exhale for 6 to 8 counts. Do this for 4 minutes before sleep and twice during your day when stress peaks. A randomized study published in Frontiers in Human Neuroscience found that just 4 weeks of this practice reduced salivary cortisol levels by more than 20%. Your body has the capacity to recover from this. Biology working the way it was designed. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you honestly rate your stress level right now? Drop your number in the comments. Habit number 2, ignoring your hearing. This one surprises almost everyone, including most doctors. If you are over 50 and you have noticed that conversations in noisy environments have become harder to follow, that you occasionally ask people to repeat themselves, you may already be living with the single most underestimated risk factor for dementia in middle age. Untreated hearing loss. Here is what happens inside your brain when hearing begins to decline and goes unaddressed. The auditory cortex, the region of your brain responsible for processing sound, begins to receive less stimulation. In response, the brain begins to reallocate resources away from that area. Cognitive load increases because your brain is constantly working harder to fill in gaps in auditory information during every conversation. Social withdrawal increases because conversations become exhausting. Over time, this combination of reduced brain stimulation, increased cognitive load, and social isolation creates a perfect storm of neurological risk. A landmark study published in The Lancet followed 10,000 adults and identified untreated hearing loss as the single largest modifiable risk factor for dementia, accounting for up to 8% of all global dementia cases, more than smoking, more than physical inactivity. A sharp, witty 72-year-old woman, a retired literature professor, had been quietly compensating for hearing loss for nearly a decade. She read lips without realizing it. She avoided dinner parties. She watched less television because she could not follow dialogue. When she was finally fitted with hearing aids, her scores on cognitive screening tests improved measurably within 6 months. Her daughter told me it was like getting her mother back. Get a hearing test. Not next year. This month. If you are over 55 and you have not had one in the last 2 years, schedule it tomorrow. Hearing tests are typically covered by insurance and take less than 30 minutes. If hearing aids are recommended and cost is a barrier, know that over-the-counter options approved by the FDA became available in 2022 and have dramatically reduced the financial obstacle. The good news is your brain can respond to restored auditory input at any age. This brings immediate benefits. The window to protect your cognitive future is open right now. Had you ever connected hearing loss to dementia risk before today? Type yes or no in the comments. I am genuinely curious how many people know about this one. Habit number 1. Living without a sense of purpose. We have arrived at the habit that the research returns to again and again, the one that separates the people who live into their 90s with vitality from those who decline a decade earlier. It is not a supplement, it is not a diet, it is not a medication, it is having a reason to wake up. Here is what happens inside your body when you have a strong sense of purpose. Your stress response system modulates more effectively. Inflammation markers are consistently lower, sleep quality is higher, physical activity increases naturally because you have places to go and things that matter to you. Conversely, when people lose their sense of purpose, often after retirement, the loss of a partner, or the end of a long-held identity, biological aging accelerates at a measurable rate, telomere length decreases faster, immune function drops, the risk of cardiovascular events increases significantly. A major study published in JAMA Network Open followed more than 6,000 adults over 14 years and found that people with a strong sense of life purpose had a 15% lower risk of death from any cause. The mechanism was not mystical. It was biological. Purpose drives behavior. Behavior drives physiology. And physiology drives lifespan. The most striking case I have seen in years of practice was a 71-year-old former engineer who had been slowly fading since his retirement 3 years earlier. No major diagnosis, no dramatic decline, just a slow dimming. He started volunteering twice a week at a youth robotics program. Within 6 months, his blood pressure had dropped. His sleep had improved. His wife said he looked 10 years younger. I had changed nothing in his medical regimen. Purpose had done what no prescription could. Ask yourself this single question. What would you do if you had 3 extra hours each week and it did not need to generate income or impress anyone? That answer is your starting point. Volunteer work, mentorship, creative projects, community involvement, learning a skill you have always postponed, all of them activate the same neurological and physiological cascade. You do not need to find your life's grand purpose. You need to find your next meaningful Monday. You are not too old. You are not too late. Your body has the capacity to recover, rebuild, and surprise you. That is not fear-mongering. That is medicine. What gives your life the most meaning right now? I want to read your answers. Share below. Here is your complete longevity protection protocol, built from everything we have covered tonight. You can begin this today. At 7 in the morning, within 20 minutes of waking, step outside for natural light exposure for 10 minutes. This resets your circadian clock and cortisol rhythm for the entire day. At 8 in the morning, eat a protein-anchored breakfast. 2 eggs, or Greek yogurt, or smoked salmon. No juice, no refined cereal. Pair any carbohydrate with fat and fiber. Throughout the morning, set a movement alarm every 50 minutes. 2 minutes of walking or 5 bodyweight squats every time. At midday, connect with one person meaningfully. A phone call, a message, an in-person conversation. Make it real, not transactional. At 3 in the afternoon, give 30 minutes to something purposeful, something that matters to you, not to your inbox. At 9 in the evening, begin your wind down. Dim lights, no screens. Bedroom at 65 degrees. 4-minute breathing exercise. Inhale for 4, hold for 2, exhale for 6 to 8. By 10 in the evening, be in bed. Consistent sleep window of 7.5 to 8 hours, non-negotiable. Research shows that adults who implement at least 4 of these daily anchors reduce their all-cause mortality risk by more than 43% over a 10-year period. You can start this tonight, not next week. Tonight. Let me bring this together. Habit 7. Sitting still too long is quietly dismantling your metabolism one afternoon at a time. Habit 6, chronic sleep deprivation, is interrupting the nightly cleaning of your brain. Habit 5, glycemic chaos at the table, is slowly damaging every blood vessel in your body. Habit 4, social withdrawal, is as dangerous to your heart and brain as lighting a cigarette every hour. Habit 3, unmanaged chronic stress, is aging your cells at a rate your birthday cannot account for. Habit 2, ignored hearing loss, is removing the stimulation your brain needs to stay sharp. And habit 1, living without purpose, is removing the reason your body has to keep fighting for you. Each one of these, alone, nudges the needle in the wrong direction. Together, they create a perfect storm, one that accounts for the majority of preventable decline in adults over 50. But here is the truth that the wellness industry will never sell you because it cannot charge you for it. This is not fate. This is not your genetics punishing you. This is not inevitable. Every single one of these habits is reversible. Every one of them is within your control. Starting today. Your body has been working for you every single day for 50, 60, 70 years, without complaint, without a day off, without asking you for anything in return. It has carried you through every hard year, repaired you in the night while you slept, kept your heart beating through every loss, every joy, every ordinary Tuesday. Tonight, give it something back. Not perfection, not an extreme routine, not a supplement stack. Give it movement. Give it sleep. Give it real food, real connection, and a reason to wake up tomorrow that matters to you. You are not a passive victim of time. You are not broken. You are a person who now knows what the research actually says, and that knowledge is the most powerful longevity tool that exists. Use it tonight. If this changed the way you think about your health, subscribe right now. Every single week, I share life-saving health information explained clearly, for adults over 50 who deserve to know the truth, not just the trends. Hit the like button. It costs you nothing, and it helps this message reach someone who may not know they are at risk. Leave a comment below. Write, "I am changing this tonight," and tell me which of the 7 habits you are addressing first. I read every single comment personally. And share this video with someone you love, a partner, a parent, a friend, the person who crossed your mind while you were watching. You may never know whose life you protect. I am Dr. Daniel Carter, and I will see you in the next video.